Am I the asshole for laughing when my wife fell and pooped her pants because I thought it was a prank? I, 33 male, think my wife, 31 female, is genuinely funny, but her love of pranks and toilet humor can be a bit much. One day, I was in the living room. My wife ran in holding her tummy. She slipped and fell. Then she said something like, "Crap, I pooped my pants." Everything about it seemed like a prank she would do. From the double-meaning phrase, to the toilet humor, to the physical comedy. Despite the fact that I dislike most of her pranks, I found this one funny. But it wasn't pranking. When I realized, I tried to help her up. She told me not to touch her. She sarcastically called me husband of the year for laughing at her. I explained, but she said I should have known it wasn't a prank because she did a similar one before and she doesn't repeat the same pranks. Am I the asshole? BAHAHAHAHAHAH. Not the asshole. Your wife is just the girl who cried poop. You should have known I was telling the truth because I've lied before. Okay, not the asshole. Not the asshole. This is what fruit is born of frequent pranks. And as a good partner, you were engaging and supporting her antics. When you realized it was real, you immediately went to help. She's probably mad at herself because she knows you laughing was essentially her own doing. So the story is probably fiction, but I do love the idea that it couldn't be a prank, not because it was in poor taste or taking things too far, but because it was too close to something she'd pulled before. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. She's the boy who cried wolf. This is exactly the kind of low-stakes drama I live for in this Reddit. I'm on your side, though I would apologize for your wife that this happened to her in the first place. It is objectively funny when written out. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for getting my colleague in trouble for calling me his work wife? Some time ago I, 29F, was assigned by my European-based employer to work on a project at our US location. Part of my assignment was training a new hire within my special area of expertise. This new guy is about 10 years older than me and hired for a management position, however he is in no way my superior as I take on more of a consulting role with the local team. I noticed straight away that he is very outgoing and sociable, joking around a lot with his colleagues. Quite different from the men I am used to, as I come from a Northeast European country where the male stereotype can only be described as silent. He immediately took an interest in me and started jokingly flirting and complimenting my looks. This made me uncomfortable since we are both married, and I felt it was very inappropriate. It also made me feel as if he did not respect me professionally when comments like, "You look so cute when you're serious," would interrupt my training sessions with him. The assignment itself was a big deal to me and I wanted nothing more than to exceed expectations, which is why I was reluctant to bring this up and create drama. I tried ignoring his behavior, but the last straw for me was when he started calling me his work wife openly in the office. I understand that this term is used in a joking manner in US office culture, but we absolutely do not have anything similar in my home country, and if word would get around back home about this, I would have to explain to my husband why some random man decided to call me his wife. To avoid this, I decided I need to put an end to the casual flirting and jokes from this man. I sat him down one-on-one and told him, in short, that he has to stop calling me his work wife. He seemed like he understood, but I was maybe being too nice or vague in my approach towards him because he acted no different the following days. This made me frustrated as I felt I now have to either go to my and his boss and risk this reflecting badly on my assignment or risk conflict in my marriage. I ultimately decided that my marriage is more important than my job and told my boss about my issue. Luckily my boss took me seriously and told me that he would handle it and to stop worrying about it. I am not sure what went down after this, but the flirting and the compliments from my colleague abruptly stopped. I was relieved, but I also felt that my colleague acted very cold towards me after this all happened. I still successfully finished my training sessions with him and the assignment and relocated back home. Now in retrospect I am wondering if I overreacted due to the cultural differences between the US and my home country. Maybe what my colleague was doing was just normal social interaction and I acted like a complete asshole getting him into trouble with our boss for mere joking. Not the asshole. He was acting unprofessional as hell. Congratulations on both completing your assignment successfully and shutting down a creep who thought he could get away with sexually harassing you. You're a hero. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You did nothing wrong. You approached this male colleague first and asked him to stop. You were uncomfortable. He did not stop. That is harassment. You did the right thing by reporting him. I bet other women he works with thank you. That's not cute office banter, that's him ignoring your boundaries after you told him to stop. Cultural differences or not, once you say, "This makes me uncomfortable," it's game over. He had a chance to act normal and he didn't, so you protected yourself, your marriage, and your professionalism. That's not overreacting, that's respecting yourself. Not the asshole. Terms like work wife are and can be uncomfortable. I am not European or American, but I would be uncomfortable with a man calling me his work wife, even if he and I were friendly. You did nothing wrong, in fact, you did what you could in the right way. You spoke to him in person first, then when that didn't change his behavior, it definitely became harassment on his part, so you took it up the chain to your boss, who dealt with it. Not the asshole from the US. And I find the work wife, husband routine to be at best cringe and at worst an attempt to cover or soften inappropriate behavior. And while not unheard of, it's not like people are throwing those jokes around all over the place here. You did the right thing by addressing it one-on-one first. He only has himself to blame for the escalation to management. Don't sweat it. Am I the asshole for refusing to stay at my fiancé's parents' house for 4 days after our wedding? I'm getting married to my fiancé at the end of December. We're going to be having 2 events, the first one in my parents' city where most of my family is, and the second one in his parents' city where most of his family is. After some brainstorming, the 2 of us decided on our honeymoon destination. Today, as we were meeting for lunch, my fiancé, who was handling the honeymoon logistics, told me the itinerary. I noticed that there were 4 days between the event in his parents' city and when we leave for our honeymoon. When I asked, he said that won't we be staying for a bit at his parents'? I asked why. He said since we won't get to see his parents and relatives that often, this was a good opportunity. I was like, why use our wedding, something we're planning on doing once, for this? Also, those 4 days were coming at the expense of possible honeymoon days. He mentioned that some of his relatives coming from other places would also be staying at his parents' house. We might never see a lot of them ever. To me, that just made it worse, to have to spend 4 days right after the wedding at his parents' house, full of his relatives including children. I became a bit angry and said this was ridiculous. Please change the honeymoon itinerary to the day after our wedding. He was reacting as if I was being ridiculous, that he'd taken so much care in setting up the itinerary, and he seemed hurt that I was dismissing it. I said I appreciated how he'd been handling everything, but those 4 days would ruin the vibe for me, so please do this for me. He said there's still a lot of time, that the changes could be made once but not again and again, so let's wait and see if we feel the same way later. I agreed but said I was 100% sure my feelings wouldn't change, which he didn't appreciate. We're okay, and we're not discussing that right now, but I wanted to know, am I the asshole? Who the fuck wants to spend their honeymoon at their parents' house with a bunch of relatives? That is the most unromantic situation you could possibly come up with. Absolutely ridiculous. Ask your fiancé if he is okay with not getting laid for a week after the wedding and see how he feels about it. Not the asshole. Him for planning that without discussion. You for acting like his family and related children are the plague. I assume he has good relationships with his fam and was excited about getting to spend some time with people that are important to him. Especially since he doesn't see them often. It was wrong for him to make a unilateral decision that cuts into honeymoon time without a conversation, but your attitude about it just stinks. This obviously means something to him, and while a magical wedding, honeymoon is rad, family doesn't live forever. If you can afford 2 weddings and a honeymoon, you can afford to take another vacation for just the 2 of you later. Maybe try a compromise where you spend 1-2 extra days visiting and not 4. You gotta give a little too. Not the asshole. 4 days in a house with extended family between the wedding and the honeymoon would, as you say, ruin the vibe. A lot of people would feel that way. You're not weird. Could you compromise by getting a hotel in town for those 4 days? You'd have some privacy and space while still getting to visit with his family. Not the asshole. What your fiancé does not understand is that family time at his parents after your wedding is going to be fun for him, as it's his family and he is the reason for the season in his parents' house. Not so much you. It is going to be all responsibility, all pressure, all performance, no fun. Your fiancé is wrong. What's happening after the event at your parents'? Are you spending a few days there? If so, then it's fair for him to think it was okay to do the same with his family. I think a compromise is best here. Stay at a hotel instead of the family home and maybe cut it to 2 days instead of 4? Am I the asshole for pretending to be a Christian? Hi everyone, so my boyfriend and I got into a fight last weekend. He is a devout Christian. He made this clear to me when we started dating. I told him pretty much that it's fine for me but that he shouldn't expect me to convert for him. Obviously I will respect any traditions he wishes to follow as long as he respects me and my authority. For a couple of months he has been a bit more pushy about it. We had a conversation at the time. He told me that he believes it's his responsibility to at least try to get me into the Lord's light. I put an ultimatum then, that he was to respect my views on religion or we'd be done. Things were a bit awkward after this since I didn't feel like joining him for church anymore after this. Before I went with him once in a while to show that I care about him. Now last weekend we were invited by his mom for a dinner party. Like him, she's very devout but a sweet lady. So before dinner she likes to pray and read a Bible passage. No big deal, I am holding hands and waiting patiently until the food comes out. While eating she asked what I thought of the passage she had read. It was the passage where King Solomon offers to cut a baby in half to appease two claimed mothers and the real mother giving up her baby to avoid harming it and thus proving she's the one. I just told my mother-in-law my thoughts on it, how it is a beautiful passage and shows that sometimes people can cause a lot of harm by pretending and claiming things that isn't theirs. She was happy and smiled and praised me for how wise beyond my years I am. So my boyfriend just kinda snickered and said that it was funny since this was all an act from me. He exposed me as not being Christian and that I didn't even allow him to try and convert me. His mom just kinda looked sad and said something like everyone gets to choose their own path, but dinner was very awkward after this. So obviously I confront him after that what he did was not cool. I am fine standing still and praying, I am fine listening to a Bible text and discussing it. I am just not fine being asked to convert and do these things every day, and I am certainly not fine being exposed for something as silly as that. But he told me that leading his mom on is dishonest and I should have made the same thing clear to her. In his words, pretending to be a Christian is much worse than just not being a Christian. So yeah, in my opinion I was just participating in a family tradition with good intentions. In his opinion I was deceiving his family. Am I really the asshole for not making it clear that I don't believe in it? Not the asshole. You didn't pretend to be a Christian. You expressed your thoughts on a Bible story, and you were respectful to his family's dinner rituals like holding hands and praying. Also, I hate to say it, but you're clearly not compatible with your boyfriend. He wants someone Christian, and clearly wants to convert you. You dumped him, right? Right? Not the asshole, that's not subterfuge, it's literary analysis. I don't think a relationship requires sharing belief, but it does require respecting belief, and he doesn't respect yours. Your boyfriend doesn't respect you. How is that relationship supposed to work? Not the asshole, you hearing a story, parable and taking the learning has nothing to do with being Christian. Your boyfriend has serious issues. If you did agree to go along, he would then want you to dress a certain way, talk a certain way. Probably time for an exit strategy. I'm guessing you don't live together because that would be a sin. P.S. She's not your mill. NTA. Laughing my ass off. I went to Catholic primary and secondary school and I could talk about the Bible passages out my ass like there was no tomorrow. Being able to talk about the Bible does not a Christian make. You never said you were, you just made polite conversation.